Today we're going to talk about the Genshin Impact fandom and why it has slowly become one of the most toxic fandoms on the internet, which I think is a very interesting topic since I've noticed that a large majority of you that watch my videos also play the game as well, and I've been seeing a number of comments under my videos complaining about the game, saying it's toxic or just complaining about something else in general. So let's go through all your comments and see why the Genshin Impact fandom is toxic. As a person who's sort of involved in the fandom, it's a small group of people trying to force their will and ideals on others that cause the toxicity for the most part. The ones who go out of their way to harass or bully anyone who doesn't fit their way of playing or interpreting the game. Those who give the fandom a toxic reputation are awful, and I wish they'd leave everyone trying to peacefully enjoy the game and the internet in general alone. I think every fandom has people who solely just focus on gatekeeping literally everything, and if a person comes around and says something about a character that they don't like, they just immediately start to harass them and bully them. So a friend of mine had an especially toxic experience when she pointed out a few mistranslations within the Chinese translations, and she was ridiculed and harassed, besides her being actually Chinese. Why does this sound like it must have happened on Twitter? It's such a Twitter thing where instead of them to pay attention to the correction, they'll prefer to just clown you without even thinking if you actually know what you're saying and you're part of the people that are being talked about. I think in general, no, but there's definitely a loud group of people and fans that are. Genshin Impact's general player base is pretty huge, and with any large fan base, there's bound to be a lot of people that are toxic. Also, with Genshin being a gacha game and rated PG, it adds more layers to the mix. I remember making a video on gacha life and how it has a toxic fan base as well, despite it being a large community, and people in the comments pointed out that it was just a small amount of people in the community that were making it look toxic. So I guess that could be the same thing happening here. The majority of Genshin players might just be chill and literally just interact with the community on a good note, but then there might be a small group that pushes things to extreme and are extremely toxic on different platforms, and they're the ones making the community look bad. It's pretty toxic in my opinion, because just on TikTok alone, you'd most likely get attacked for not liking or showing interest in something. There's also them literally harassing the voice artists and stuff just because they didn't like the character, and will switch up when they get a new character showcase or gameplay leak of a character that they hate. Nahida and Kusanali, for example. I think fans of video game characters and just IPs in general need to chill, okay? You can criticize a game and call out aspects of a game you don't like on Twitter and Instagram and whatever, but going out of your way to harass the people who worked on the game is just awful behavior. Please don't do that. These people are human too, and they have feelings as well. As someone who is in many fandoms, I say yes and no. The problem which Genshin shares with many other fandoms is that it got big. Big fandoms tend to be more crazy than smaller ones because there are obviously more people. Of course, those people then split up into different sections, and in those sections there are small but very vocal pockets of very toxic people and children who don't know better. I will say there is an even bigger part where people just shut up and enjoy or block those people when needed. I think this is extremely true about every fandom. The more the fandom grows and gets popular and more people get to know about it and join the community, the chances of people joining and just causing problems within the community keeps on growing the more people join the community. Because there are some people who just enjoy being problematic and literally want to see the world burn, and they will absolutely do everything they can to spread toxicity and hate wherever they go. Personal experience has also shown that many fandoms calm down after they were around long enough. Undertale is a pretty chill place now. I think I had never had any real problems in One Piece, and the Naruto fandom has come together in a nearly united hatred of the ending and Boruto. Being part of the fandom, I would say it would be either the shipping or characters. The shipping one because of arguments, and plus people create some creepy or questionable ships. For example, Kaya and Diluc. People ship them when they're kinda like brothers. Sometimes some people are obsessed with certain characters or get really protecting over the certain ones. To the point if you say you main that character or say that character is your favorite too, They yell at you and say you can't because they mean them. Questioning on the characters, they usually believe some are gay, some are straight, and some are trans. Sometimes they attack people for either not playing or starting or joining late in the game. Fan art, especially when some people of color make some fan art or edits of characters and make them people of color, they usually get jumped and attacked from them, especially on TikTok. That's where I usually see it. The fandom is really just yin and yang, to be honest. I feel like people attack anybody who chooses to draw fan art of a character and make them a person of color, regardless of whatever platform it is they choose to post that drawing. The worst ones are definitely on Twitter, where people just start fixing the drawing if they feel they don't like it. But then everyone is allowed to make fan art of whatever character they feel like. If you don't like the fan art because of the skin tone, go make your own fan art and make the skin tone whatever you want it to be, instead of just fixing someone else's work. It's the same with anything that has a large following. Genshin's small portion of toxic fans just happen to be exceptionally good at garnering attention. I think the fandom has some of the most dedicated and creative people, but the toxic fans are usually kids with extreme views, feel entitled to everything, always complaining and sexualizing the hell out of characters. It's in a similar boat as communities such as the My Hero Academia fan base, where there's just a bunch of people who are extremely determined to get what they want under the guise of pushing for better representation in a fictional series. Luckily, most if not nearly all of the controversial part of the Genshin community is situated within Twitter. The other media platforms, save maybe TikTok, are pretty chill from what I've seen, just from how toxic some of the tweets and comments I've seen regarding Genshin Impact, or just people making art of Genshin Impact and posting on Twitter I've seen, which I'm guessing is probably one of the major reasons why the community is growing to become extremely toxic. I've not really seen a lot of Genshin TikTok because I barely even use TikTok, but if you're on TikTok and are part of the Genshin Impact community and seen some weird things there, please tell us what you saw in the comments. I also find it very funny how they claim to be not toxic on Twitter, but then when someone says something they don't agree with, they immediately just start calling them names just because they don't agree with their opinion. Do you guys understand that you can disagree with someone's opinion without insulting them or calling them names, right? Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. It's up to you if you agree with it or not. Honestly, the part of the fandom I'm in is quite chill and cool. A lot of my IRL friends play Genshin and they don't do the shit that some of the more louder parts of the fandom do, namely thirst over a character who's clearly mentioned to be a minor. I think if you keep to a smaller community in the fandom, you'd have a much better experience playing the game. You, my friend, happen to be in a peaceful place, and I hope that you keep being there as long as you play the game with your friends. Definitely due to the nature and target audience of the game. When you have a game that uses people as in human beings that seem to be based off of real world, people can get defensive and force their values on other people who don't even come from their side of the world. Hence why Westerners, or mostly Americans in general, are upset that some of the women in game don't have canon ages and are unfamiliar with the Asian concept of young, cute, youthful women equal to a good life. Oh, well, I never heard of that. Personally, I think that's highly subjective. A fandom is a concept mainly bred online. Consuming media is really something you experience for yourself. An exclusive experience. A fandom's purpose is to share your experience with others and engage in the community. Some people may have different experiences interacting with other fans, especially in a big fandom where there's people with different opinions, worldviews, ideals, and how said media is consumed. What social media platform a person browses on may affect this, because a fandom is primarily bred online. Platforms that are Twitter and TikTok that are commonly used for voicing opinions and controversial topics, you're going to find a lot of critical people in general compared to Instagram. I think the platform you spend the most time on is going to affect how you react to things like arguments and controversies, especially if you take part in any controversy on the platform. which is why compared to Twitter and TikTok, Instagram isn't as bad when it comes to sharing of opinions, since the only way you can do that is under a post or in your stories, so it's much harder for people to engage with each other and share their opinions whether they're toxic or not. Throughout the lifespan of Genshin, a lot of topics and controversies have been discussed. No matter who's debating who, it's rarely ever discussed in a civil manner. There's just a majority of people who are uneducated, narrow-minded, or cannot comprehend nuance regarding certain discussions. These can be real-world problems that are great to bring up, but it's just people. This description may fit children, immature individuals. I find this is not always the case though, since age is usually irrelevant to maturity. I don't think children or adolescents are entirely to blame. Is debating online actually efficient? It's very tempting for me sometimes, but you know, who's going to get off their high horse and come to a common understanding? Toxic is a simplification. That too is subjective. I've noticed people pointing fingers at certain aspects or people in the fandom, but they fail to realize that they may also be contributing to a toxic fandom, or toxic could refer to the opinionated aspect of the fandom. This person really took us to school in just a few paragraphs. Like... This person just had me thinking, okay, that makes a lot of sense. In my opinion, the Genshin Impact community is the most toxic fandom I have ever seen in my life, ranked from not respecting opinions, personal headcanons being forced by people, and gay people specifying that every character in the game are in a relationship, and people saying the game is for gays. Only like, bruh, what? Only a small amount of people in that community are actually nice. For me, I think it's the ships or other things. I don't understand some of the ships like Child and Zhongli or something. From my observations, they will get two upcoming or just any characters and pair them up with another character of the same gender, basically fetishizing gay ships. Although it's not like that all the time, sometimes it's reasonable why they will ship the two characters. The community really needs to pull their shit together. Like, can someone explain to me why I saw Diona and Guru while scrolling through Twitter? Diona's a minor and Guru's an adult. Can someone explain in the comments why y'all are shipping characters unprovoked? Like, we get it, we can ship characters if they actually make sense and they're not kids, but shipping kids? That's some other level of weirdo behavior. For me, it's when they tell BIPOC people how to feel when the game does something controversial or be super hateful to plus size or BIPOC cosplayers. I think one of the things that piss me off is when I see people being super hateful and mean to people doing cosplay of their favorite characters just because of their skin tone. I've seen it happen so many times on Twitter, and it's honestly so disturbing and annoying. Why do you think characters can only be cosplayed by people who aren't BIPOC? Just let people do their thing and stop gatekeeping characters and fandoms and telling people what to do or what not to do and judging them based on their skin color. I think toxic people are toxic, period. Different games just bring out their toxicity in different ways. If it weren't Genshin Impact, it'd be something else. Games on their own aren't necessarily toxic, it mostly comes down to the person playing it. A lot of people should reevaluate their behavior before using a game as a means or justification to enforce their will on others. Games can be designed in a way that is unhealthy for the player, but this seems like a case of a bad person finding an outlet for their badness. I think this applies to not just gacha games but other games in general, especially games that have online multiplayer modes. Games like Fortnite have all been said to have toxic fan bases, especially because it's made up of a very young audience, but then the amount of people that are toxic only thrive when other people engage with that part of the community, so just don't interact with them. Anything that encourages kids to develop a gambling addiction through loot box euphoria is bound to develop a toxic user base. There's so much elitism in games like that, where those who can afford to spend money to get better drops treat others who don't have said drops like poor plebeians. But also every fan base has toxic members. You gather enough people and there's gonna be some rotten eggs. Homestuck had them, anime has them, TTRPGs have way too many of them. Have you been in an Xbox 360 era Call of Duty lobby? Yes. Point is, toxicity is everywhere, and while it may not be the majority of a player base or fan base, they're always the most vocal and the most publicized. because being civil doesn't get publicity. Bruh, those Call of Duty lobbies were insane. I literally can't imagine anything more toxic than all those Call of Duty lobbies. Also, what you said about being civil doesn't get publicity is so true. Oh my god, people will literally listen to an opinion if there's just a hint of negativity in it, just because they either want to laugh at it or reply with an equally negative comment. That's why almost everyone's Twitter feed is filled up with 80% of weird tweets either trolling someone or something, or just videos showing weird, terrible things happening around the world. It's actually really sad how negativity gets way too much attention online, and I don't understand why. I'm a part of the community, and from what I can see, most of the toxicity from the fandom is from a bunch of 10-year-olds who are way too into this game. So they think that everything they think is right because they're a bunch of smart alecks. So when someone either disagrees with their opinion when it comes to things like ships, or when a voice actor or any kind of creator that's involved in the development or the fandom of the game does something they don't like, they throw a fit or outrightly bully that person. Honestly, it makes me embarrassed to say I'm part of it, even though I like the game. Racism, straight up, to be honest. The immature kids are the ones who mostly give the game a bad name, but MiHoYo is constantly getting fried because whenever they add a supposed black character to the game, they are super pale and have zero black traits to them. It's more so the company. When people speak on the racism within the company and how they represent darker skinned characters, a lot of the Genshin community will either A, ignore everything we say, or B, feed into the racism and start doing it themselves. I think out of all the comments I read, this has to be the most common theme that I see happen all the time. And I think it's technically the developers' fault because they keep on repeating the same mistakes over and over. So it looks like they're not even taking feedback from the community at all. Since the fanbase has questioned why the developers keep on creating characters that are not black enough, even though they're supposedly people of color according to the law or the part of the game where they reside, a simple solution to this is for the developers to just listen to the people who actually play the game and just fix the characters people keep complaining about, instead of fueling the fire and watching the community burn. Anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why the Genshin Impact community is regarded as one of the most toxic fandoms. So leave a comment and tell me what you think. Please leave the video a like, subscribe to my channel if you're new here, share the video with a friend that plays Genshin Impact. I will see all you pretty penguins in the next video.